Hi, everybody. This is Pashmina, and today we're going to be talking about something that has taken the world by storm. We are currently in the second week of May, and we are living through what the International Energy Agency calls the biggest energy and security crisis in the globe. This is a critical point in our lives where we have to consider what's the best not only for the environment and the people around us, but for our day to day functioning as well. And of course, I'm talking about the implications that have come about as a consequence of the war going on in the Middle East. So, before we jump right into it, let's first discuss how the war began, when it began, who are the key players, and who are the major countries being immediately impacted, as well as the global impact of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the current scenario and situation that we are in this geopolitical climate. So the war officially began on the 28th of February 2026. The key players were America and Israel versus Iran. But how exactly did it start? Well, let's talk about it a little more. The initial move was taken by America and Israel when they joined forces to plan and execute a covert undercover operation called Operation Epic Fury and Roaring Tiger. So, the major point of these operations was to secretly assassinate the Ayatollah, aka the head of Iran, which was at that point Ali Khamenei. With the successful assassination of Ali Khamenei, things started to spiral immediately, with Iran taking a very, very strong stance against America and Israel. And this led to the whole Middle East war as we currently know it. So both the operations were conducted in stealth and absolute precision. Under the command of Donald J. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the assassination of Ali Khamenei was absolutely successful, and this left Iran in the control of their son, Mujtaba Khamenei, who was absolutely vicious with his attacks. He held nothing back after this surprise attack killed not only his father, but some elite military officials of Iran as well as collateral damage. The official sources claim that America started a war for many various reasons, primarily because of the fear of Iran developing nuclear weapons. Now, even though there were peace talks going on in Geneva at the time, as well as in Oman, about the whole nuclear settlement with Iran, America went ahead and attacked them anyway. This was a sign of bad faith on America's part and had major retaliations later on. The second point they brought up as a country is that they were afraid of Iran taking steps into nuclear development in general, and that it could lead to the first point, which is nuclear warfare. So, in order to take preventative measures, America has decided to strike Iran's Ayatollah. The third reason that America claimed to have attacked Iran was because, as you all are aware, earlier on in this year, around January, Iran had launched a barrage of horrible attacks upon its own citizens. They cracked down on citizens protesting against the Islamic regime and against conservative behaviors overall. So, as a result, Donald Trump, the president of America, is claiming that help was on the way. And when he said that, he meant it in this fashion: to take over Iran completely and take over command of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, though this is not an official reason why, there is mass speculation from both American citizens and other citizens of the world alike that a major reason why this war was started in the first place was because of the Epstein files. Yes, of course, they've come up here even. So, because Donald J. Trump has been mentioned in the Epstein files a numerous amount of times for the most vulgar behavior, due to that, Israel, who had all this information on hand, used it to conveniently blackmail Trump into making America a part of this war and launching the missions altogether, spearheading the attack on Iran. So, like I mentioned earlier, Iran had a crackdown on its countrymen, America retaliated, and now Mujtaba Khamenei has officially taken over as the Ayatollah of Iran, or the head of the country, right? So now the major consequences that have come about of that is that Iran became the aggressor to this war. Now, Iran is not known for having any sort of weapons or arms that could even reach America's distance. So instead, they chose to take up a tactic of horizontal escalation. So what exactly does horizontal escalation mean? Well, it basically means that instead of attacking a country or a place that's too geographically far away from the attacking country, they will instead attack the neighbors that have friendly alliances with the country that they want to attack. In this case, Iran decided to attack the rest of the Middle East that had good connections with America. This includes Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait as well. So the worst of it was faced by the Dubai and UAE, being stuck between Iran and Israel geographically. Over the course of this war, they have suffered over 537 ballistic missile hits from Iran, as well as 2,256 drone strikes. And not only from Iran, but from Israel as well as collateral damage. Apart from the missiles being dropped on Dubai and the UAE, the rest of the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain, are facing a horrible time economically because not only did Iran strike down a lot of their oil fields, including Saudi Arabia's major oil field that produces about 80% of their oil, but has restricted the movement of oil and the export of oil outside the Gulf area by shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. This has had adverse consequences on everybody involved in the whole process of import and export of gas, LNG, fuel, petrol, diesel. So why did Iran make this strategic move? Well, let's talk about it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to put an image of the Strait of Hormuz right here. So the Strait of Hormuz is a strait of the Arabian Sea, a narrow passage of water that passes through continental Africa at the south side and the Cap of the Middle East on Iran's side at the north. It is under Iranian jurisdiction and territory, which basically means that Iran has command over how it operates. So why is the Strait of Hormuz so important? Well, the Strait of Hormuz is essentially the world's biggest energy movement stream at a global scale, transporting over 20% of the global energy, including crude oil, LPG, LNG, petrochemicals, fertilizers, etc. Now, to put this in other terms or into figures, this means that they are responsible or move the traffic of over 20 million barrels of crude oil a day, okay, with $21 billion worth of crude oil moving in and out of the strait on a daily basis, as well as $149 billion worth of LPG, LNG, and other sort of petrochemicals and fertilizers. Now, this shortage and this closure done by Iran has had a huge global impact, with literal economies shutting down, fuel reserves being depleted, markets crashing, and currencies dropping like wildfire all over the globe. So let's talk about what's majorly happening now. The biggest hit is being taken by Iran's neighbors and the rest of the Middle East, because for places like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, a lot of their infrastructure and economy is dependent on the export of petroleum and crude oil, which now is being severely restricted due to their relations with the USA. The next country on that list is indeed USA as well, because Iran, later on in the war, having made a very smart strategic move, had partially opened up the Strait of Hormuz, but instead of taking dealings and payment fees that they had implemented through a toll booth regime in petrodollars, which is how it has been run so for the past 100 or 200 years since US has come into power, they now are only accepting Chinese yuan or cryptocurrency. This is a huge economic change which is bolstering China's economy by strengthening the yuan and absolutely destroying US's economy in the same breath. This is because US as a country was very heavily dependent on the US petrodollar, which basically means that any other country in the world that wanted to import or export oil had to do it as per the charge of $1, which is then called a petrodollar. By taking this element out of the equation, it has massively damaged US's economy and has left them in a very bad state. So as a result, the partial opening of the Strait of Hormuz, the toll booth regime that has come about due to it, the collapsing US economy, as well as the restricted energy and oil flow throughout the globe, has kind of left the world in a very precarious situation. So this means that within a few months, if the war goes on, which it is currently, then we are looking at major energy shortages across the globe. As a result, the International Energy Agency had released energy reserves of over 400 million barrels of oil just to make sure that the global economy doesn't collapse and implode in itself. However, experts and analysts say that this is only a temporary measure, and for any significant change to happen, the strait needs to be opened entirely. So let's roll around now to how it's affecting India. So what's happening is, because of the restricted movement of the Strait of Hormuz, India is not receiving LPG cylinders, LNG gas, as well as crude oil and petroleum. Now, though crude oil and petroleum may not be such a big deal to us because we do have reserves, LPG and LNG shortages are having a massive impact on the citizens of our country on a daily basis. We've also seen a massive shortage of LPG cylinders, which every Indian household uses in general to cook and use on a daily basis. So India as a country consumes about 55 lakh LPG cylinders daily. Each of our shipments carries about 63.8 lakh. So we usually have a small surplus. However, with the reserves depleting and the strait being closed off currently right now to everyone, this may not be the case, which has made a lot of Indian citizens revert back to using traditional wood fire cooking methods. So on the 8th of April, Iran and America actually agreed to a ceasefire. So this ceasefire was initially proposed by America towards Iran, but was immediately rejected because Iran did not agree with the points put forward by America. And then, via negotiation through Pakistan, a new 10-point agreement was created and signed by both countries. Now, this 10-point agreement included various points like a complete cessation of any hostilities between both countries, a ceasefire of a cease of attack and hostilities on any of the Iranian Axis countries, so their supporters such as the Houthis in Lebanon and the extremist supporter forces in Yemen and Iraq. On the other hand, Iran was to stop attacking Israel, as well as America and all the allied nations, so the rest of the Middle East that had been facing barrages of attacks from both sides. America was demanded to make war reparations and pay Iran for the damage they caused during this whole operation, as well as unfreeze Iranian assets which had been previously frozen by America during the whole conflict that happened. There was also an agreed upon maritime protocol taken against the Strait of Hormuz to ensure that there was clear passage for the time being and that the strait has opened up. And one of the probably most controversial points within this 10-point agreement was that Iran will have sanctions to carry out research and development of uranium and nuclear energy. So the Farsi version of the 10-point agreement stated this. However, the English version officially released by press did not include this point, which immediately led to tension in the air about the ceasefire. Though reluctantly agreed upon, the ceasefire was officially in effect, but due to the tension of the 9-point being debated in Farsi and English conversions, it almost collapsed immediately. The first act against this truce was done by none other than Israel when they went ahead and attacked the blatant disregard caused by Israel's breach of the truce was seen when they attacked Lebanon, which the blatant disregard caused by Israel's breach of the truce was seen when they attacked Lebanon, which is an allied force to Iran, almost immediately, in less within a day that the ceasefire was agreed upon, claiming that just because they had stopped attacking Iran did not mean that they had to stop attacking Iran's allies. Iran immediately became aggressive towards Israel and said that the ceasefire had been breached. Another breach then seen because tensions rose immediately as a consequence of Israel's attack on Lebanon was that America immediately tightened and reinforced a naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz to restrict Iran from moving their own oil in and out of the strait for their export. Now, this immediately struck a nerve with Iran, and as a result, the country completely closed the Strait of Hormuz all over again. And here we are back to square one. Currently, the results of the Strait of Hormuz being closed can be felt by everyone. There are economies collapsing. Japan is in a fuel crisis. They've almost depleted their reserves. India, people have been warned to not travel as much, to work from home, to stop eating food from outside, and even for restaurants to revert back to using traditional wood fire methods to cook food instead. This war is going on and is not seeming to have a conclusive end. And this could mean global crises for everyone. So what happens when the world leaders of today are sitting on their pedestals and taking decisions that are affecting the everyday citizen like you and me more than themselves? Well, it is just a consequence of how horrendous war can be and the effect it can have on everyone. It is now machines, drones, and missiles being launched on wide scope areas, and this aerial warfare is not only hurting the people intended to hurt, but is also having a lot of collateral damage in innocent lives being lost. So we, sitting here today, really have to ask ourselves, is all of this just for control over a strait, just for freedom of research of nuclear weapons, or just for the matter of power? Is it all worth it? Well, I don't know about you, but I definitely don't think so. So on that note, I would like to conclude this talk. I will keep you guys updated with anything else coming forward from the war and keep you all updated on what the next moves are for the main key players. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found this educational. I will see y'all later. and thank you for watching. Bye bye.